So good morning, everyone. It's great to see you. I'm Kathy Merchant, and I used to lead this, and then I'm pinch hitting right now for Rachel and Dorley because they're both doing very cool things this weekend. Dorley is in Mexico celebrating the Day of the Dead with her son, who just turned 16 yesterday, and Rachel's away for the weekend, but I am very happy to be here and leading this with Dr. Alexandra Chauran, who I'll turn it over to in a little bit. But before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that we're meeting on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the First Nations peoples. So here in my house, I'm on the land of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish nations. I know some of you are on the land of other nations. So if you'd like, please feel free to write those nation names in the chat now. And always let's remember our connection to our siblings in these nations. Let's pray for the day in which we might be together in right relationship. So welcome. Welcome to Living Interfaith. Know that the whole of you is welcome. You're not asked to leave who you are in your own homes. Instead, please bring who you are in with you. But what you are asked to remember is that everyone else in this group has brought who they are in with them as well. And all of goodwill are welcome. So I do have, let's see, when they're ready, turn it over to Bruce and Sharon for our opening song.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, come, whoever you are, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come yet again, come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So I have a few announcements. The first is just a reminder that Rachel and Dorley take turns leading our Circle of Sanctuary on the Saturdays that we don't meet for services. So we meet on the first and third Saturdays of each month. And so on the second and fourth Saturdays, they offer at the same time, 10 a.m., a Circle of Sanctuary, which is a time for some contemplation or meditation, and then a sharing, and then kind of connecting in about what sort of spiritual ideas are coming up for you and anything, and if there's any kind of reflection from the previous week or something that we've been kind of working on as a group over time. So you're most welcome to join. It's at the same Zoom link as this. So if you found us today, you can find that. And I know Samir went last week and said it was great. So please feel free to join on the off weeks if you'd like. On next Sunday, on November 9th, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. in Surrey, the Women's Interfaith Council of BC is holding an event, Hiding in Plain Sight, Intimate Partner Violence. So this event is for women and their partners, and to learn more about domestic violence and issues that affect women. So today is the last day to register to sign up, just so they know how many folks to prepare for. So if you would like to attend, I'm just going to put their email in the chat and just write to them and let them know you're interested. That event is next Sunday in the afternoon. And then on Monday, November 19th, there will be an interfaith symposium on kindness and kinship. It'll be at the Star of Sea Community Center in White Rock and is open to everyone. So it's that evening, Monday, November 17th. And just email us if you're interested and we can send you the information once they give us more details. I'll put our email in the chat here. So feel free to write to us and we can send you that. That's open to everyone. And then on Tuesday, November 18th, in the evening, Women Wage Peace and Canadian Memorial United Church are teaming up for another screening I'm a part of that group, and we're showing films on the series Women, Hope, and Peace. And so the film this month will be Las Madres, the Mothers of Plaza de Mayo, about the women who fought back against the Argentinian government to find justice for their families who were disappeared. That was in the 1970s and 80s. So if you're interested, it's open to everyone. It's free. That'll be the evening of Tuesday, November 18th at the Center for Peace, Kitsilano, Vancouver. And then finally, the Metro Vancouver Alliance will be holding a 2-day Foundations of Community Organizing workshop. It'll be later this month, November 21st through 22nd. It'll be held at St. Thomas More Collegiate in Burnaby. And it's free for all members. And because Living Interfaith is a member organization of MVA, anyone in our group is welcome to attend to learn more about community organizing and connecting with other leaders in the wider Lower Mainland community. So let us know if you're interested and we can give you the details. Again, you can just write to us at our email. So those are all my announcements. Does anyone else have any announcements they'd like to share now? Yes, Samir.
Two things. One is just a reminder to everyone that daylight savings time ends tomorrow. So remember to move your clocks back. And then the other thing is next Saturday, so November 8th, is the monthly repair cafe in Vancouver. This one's going to be the Marple Oak Ridge Community Center from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. And if you're interested in coming, we fix things for free. All kinds of things, small appliances, computers, electronics, bikes, textiles. But if you are planning to come, try to book an appointment online in advance to ensure that there is someone available to fix your stuff for you.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other announcements? All right. Seeing none, let's come into silence for our opening prayer. This is a Samhain blessing by Colette Corcoran. As the veils grow thin and whispers call, may we walk gently between the worlds, wrapped in the cloak of our ancestors' love, guided by their unseen hands. May the fire of our hearth burn bright, illuminating all that must be released. May the falling leaves teach us the holy art of surrender. In the stillness of the dark womb of earth, may our spirit find renewal. May we dream with the roots and remember what the soul was once promised to become. Blessed be our journey through shadow and flame. Blessed be our hearts that dare to feel. May we rise from this turning of the year, reborn, wise, and whole again. Blessed Samhain, beloved one, may your path be lit by love and ancient fire. And now I'm going to light this candle. Feel free to light a candle or anything you have there that you like. Bring some light into this space, especially during these darker days. And this is a candle lighting prayer from Janina Renee. As we light this candle, we give gratitude for the new day and the gift of grace that makes our world anew. Let the fire of enthusiasm and the light of clarity flow now through us. Let us set our minds and hearts on a life of purpose, on a life of blessing. Let it be so. And now, please feel free to unmute yourselves and we'll offer one another a sign of peace. So peace, everyone. So wonderful to be with you this morning.
Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Everyone. Peace, everyone.
Peace to
Everyone.
you. Allah Apa.
Beautiful. And when they're ready, Bruce and Cheryl have another song for us.
The veil between the worlds is thinning, the web of life is spinning, the fire is burning, the earth is turning, this time brings a new beginning. between the worlds is thinning. The web of life is spinning. The fire is burning. The earth is turning. With time brings a new beginning. The veil between the worlds is thinning. The web of life is spinning. The fire is burning. The earth is turning. This time brings a new beginning. The veil between the worlds is thinning. The web of life is spinning. The fire is burning. The earth is turning. This time brings a new beginning. The veil between the worlds is thinning. The web of life is spinning. The fire is burning. The earth is turning. This time brings a new beginning. The veil between the worlds is thinning. The web of life is spinning. The fire is burning. The earth is turning. This time brings a new beginning. The veil between the worlds is thinning. The web of life is spinning. The fire is burning. The earth is turning. This time brings a new beginning.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Now, if you'll join me in our joint affirmation. We come together in peace. We sing together in joy and with love. We worship together in one house, a house with names beyond number. Our paths are many, our beliefs are as leaves, and the tree that we cleave to is nourished by the light of compassion, justice, and mutual respect. May our lives, our beliefs, and our actions help to bring about the world of love we all seek. And let it begin here. And so now we're going to take just a couple minutes to do some meditation. So feel free to get comfortable. You can close your eyes if that works for you. You can kind of just notice if you have any tension in your neck or shoulders or back. You can feel free to stretch a little bit and try to release that. If it's appropriate, you can have your feet on the floor or out in front of you. And just settle into wherever you're sitting and take a few deep breaths. And as you breathe, just picture in your mind a beautiful tree with the branches opened outward in all directions. Imagine the leaves on the tree slowly changing color, turning from green to yellow or red or orange or brown. And then just imagine the leaves slowly dropping off the tree. And as you exhale, just imagine the release the tree and the leaves feel as they let go of their grip on one another and slowly surrender to the wind and to gravity, trusting that letting go does not mean permanent death, but instead a release into our new forms. Slowly imagine all the leaves dropping off one by one. And once the tree is bare, you can feel free to say a prayer. Prayer for whatever is on your heart right now, whether it's for yourself or the planet or someone close to you or a place or people. Feel free to pray whatever speaks to you in this moment. We'll sit in prayer for another few minutes. And then once you're ready, open your eyes. Thank you. And when Bruce and Cheryl are ready, they have another song for us.
Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit.
Thank you so much. Recording. And so now also, I just want to thank all of you who donate so much time and money to the sanctuary. We've been going strong for a long time now, and I'm so grateful for all that you bring into it. I will put our donation page in the chat now, and we have several folks who donate when they can, and also who are monthly donors. And this money goes to pay for our wonderful interfaith leaders and managing director, and also our speakers along the way. So I'm so grateful for all that you donate. And thanks for making this such a wonderful community. And when Bruce and Cheryl are ready, they have another song for us.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So now I'm so excited to turn it over to High Priestess Dr. Alexandra Chauran. She's an elder within the British Traditional Wiccan community. She was initiated in 2005 and has been teaching Wicca to new seekers since 2012. And she lives and teaches in Port Moody. And actually, she did a service for us several years ago, and it was one of my favorite services we've ever done. I've actually referenced it in so many interfaith talks I've done. I enjoyed it so much. So not wanting to get anyone, not wanting to raise the bar too high or anything, but I was so excited when I found out she was going to be back. So when you're ready, over to you, Alexandra.
Thank you. Can everybody see my screen here? Yeah? Okay. Awesome. Good. Yeah, here's my presentation. I'll try not to make it too boring and lecture-y about Samhain, but I'll share a bunch of personal stories because that's what it's all about. And so, yeah, lower the bar a little bit. I was up late last night. Halloween's a big night for witches. But yeah, so here's the general idea. We celebrate the Wheel of the Year, which is a Wiccan mashup of 8 agricultural and pastoral holidays. So Samhain is right here. It's placed in between the winter solstice, which we call Yule, and the autumn equinox, which we call Mabon. So these are ancient Gaelic festivals. The word Samhain probably came from Gaelic around the 9th century. And of course, I'm sure some of these pictures are going to be very relatable because that's when at that time, that's when mummering came to be and trick-or-treating and all that wonderful jazz that we know as Halloween today. So we still do that celebration. This is my daughter and my son a couple years ago. They went out trick-or-treating last night, even though they're 13 and 15. So I'm very proud that they're continuing on into their teenage years. They're awesome kids. So I sure hope that you all have families that trick or treat as well, and you're already practicing some of our ancient pagan customs. We also carve jack-o'-lanterns. So this is a representative of the same Jack that we call Jack of the Green during the springtime and Jack of the Frost during the wintertime. Of course, in the old world, there were no pumpkins, so actually turnips were carved. So here you can see my daughter carving a nice traditional turnip because this was a few years ago when for some reason there was like some supply chain issues with pumpkins and we couldn't get enough pumpkins in time. I think this is a little pumpkin we got for my son. And so my daughter's like, I'll carve a traditional turnip. That sounds good. Samhain is also big about death. Wiccans are very death positive. I've got my little chalkboard here saying you will die someday to spook everybody. And this is the gravestone of my grandparents, Nick and Bessie Pollocky, my ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. So during Halloween and Samhain time, one of the practices that we do is we do what's called a dumb supper. You may have heard of this practice in some cultures. This is where you cook a whole bunch of food that your ancestors would have enjoyed, and then you put a few on an offering plate for the ancestors to be placed outdoors, and you eat in silence. And at this time, you burn a lot of incense, like so much incense. There's more smoke than oxygen in the room. And you try to gaze at the smoke to see the spirits of the dead come back to you. And of course, you're eating in silence so that you can hear the whispers of their voices give you sage wisdom in your ears. And here's one of my beloved Mighty Dead. She actually died last year in October. So Wicca is an initiatory religion. I was initiated into Wicca. You can think of it as a priesthood of pagan religions. And this was my initiator's initiator, Haragano. And you can see this is a Facebook post that said, "Help us share a piece of Patricia Haragano. She decided to be composted. She's delighted in the thought she'll be helping her loved ones' gardens grow. We'll be bringing some of that compost to her life celebration. Please bring a container for a bit of compost if you're interested." And I do have a bit of her compost, so next spring she will be growing vegetables in my garden. Another thing I want to share from Wiccan practice is that I was there for Haragano's death. I was one of her bedside caregivers, and I'm really proud to say that Haragano had only members of the Wiccan community taking care of her in her final days, aside from a hospice nurse that showed up once a week to manage, medication refills and stuff like that. She was really in charge of every single moment of her death. We didn't hand her water unless she wanted it. We didn't do anything without her say so. And I also volunteer as a hospital chaplain, and I have never seen a death that gave somebody that much control before. And I'm hoping that that amazing example will be echo into eternity for Wiccan best death care practices. She was an incredible lady. She also taught me about the bone fire. The bone fire is where you save wish bones throughout the year from your rotisserie chicken or your turkey or whatever. And then on Samhain, you break the wish bones and burn them so that the dead can still make wishes for you. So this was a bone fire. I just added this slide this morning because this was a bone fire that I burned yesterday. And it also has various spell materials that we burn, like rowan berries from Mabon celebrations in the fall. And while I was burning it, I sang a Wiccan hymn that goes, hoof and horn, all that die shall be reborn. Vine and grain, all that's cut shall rise again. So we believe that those who die will rest a while in the afterlife, which we call the Summerlands. And after that period of rest and reunion with those who have gone before, they will return to be reborn into another body on this living planet. Because in Wicca, we don't feel like when you die, you're trying to transcend and get somewhere else. We believe that we're born on this living planet because it's the best of all possible worlds. And so we just keep coming back to learn our lessons and making it an even better world. Samhain is also a big time of bonfires, along with Beltane on our Wheel of the Year, which is interesting because they're right across from each other on the Wheel of the Year. And we believe that both these times of year, the veil between the worlds of the living and the dead is at its thinnest. So we will burn bonfires and pray and make merry around them. If you don't have space for a bonfire, though, you can always light a candle on an altar. This is my altar with a representative of our goddess and our god on it. And this is another couple of our beloved dead here. This is a member of my coven who also unfortunately passed last year. I'll speak her name, Tamara Morrison. She was a really wonderful close friend of mine, and I miss her very dearly. And so it was really meaningful this Samhain to burn the bonfire for her so she could still have her wishes. She's pictured here next to her mother Rosalie, and she was taken care of and taken in by Rosalie when she was a baby, and then she took care of Rosalie until her dying days. Whenever we put photos of our dead on an ancestor altar, we always make sure not to include any living people, so you crop out any living people that were in the photo, but you can keep any dead people. And I have a prayer here that I said, which is, holy is the path and holy is the walker. Blessed be the essence, the spark of her as she moves to the next waypoint. Hail the traveler, because in Wicca, what we say when we hear an announcement that someone has died is hail the traveler. And I guess didn't take up too much time telling all my stories because that's all the pictures that I have. But another thing that we do, which I'll be doing actually tonight, is we get together as a coven and we will be celebrating in ritual. We always bring a lot of food on feast days. The 8 Sabbats are a time for feasting, so much more than intercessory prayer. We really focus on celebration and worship. And so we will be bringing tons of food to the Samhain circle tonight and enjoying it together as a coven. My coven's been together for 12 years now, and we're really very tight and close knit like a family. And so I'm really looking forward to celebrating with them. So does anybody here have any questions about Samhain or the celebrations of Wiccans?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Lisette, and I'm just curious, could you maybe tell us a few myths that people have about Samhain and your practices? Because I know there's like all kinds of ideas.
Yes. Yes, actually. So there's an ancient Sumerian myth that Wiccans really identify with because in our practices, we share a myth called the Descent of the Goddess. And the story of the Descent of the Goddess is one where she goes to the underworld and returns from the underworld, which obviously is something people normally don't do. So that's why it's a wonderful myth. And there's a ancient Sumerian myth called the Descent of Inanna, or from the great above to the great below. And I'll tell you that version of the myth. So Inanna was a goddess of heaven and earth, and she decided that she wanted to go to the underworld. And so she went to the gates of the underworld and she dressed up in all of her shining royal garments. She had 7 royal garments on her personhood. And she knocked on the gates of the underworld and she tried to trick the gatekeeper and said, well, I want to visit the underworld because my sister Ereshkigal is in the underworld. And I would like to visit with her and do funerary rites for her husband. And so the gatekeeper says, 1 second, I'm going to go talk to Ereshkigal. He goes and he talks to Ereshkigal. Ereshkigal is kind of angry that Inanna has showed up. And she says, okay, here's what you're going to do. When she comes through the gate, one by one, you're going to take away each of her royal garments. Let her enter bowed low and naked to my chambers. And so Inanna starts to go through the gates of the underworld. There's 7 gates, and at each of the 7 gates, the gatekeeper says, you must remove this garment, her shining May garment. So she takes off each garment. Each time she says, what is this? And the gatekeeper says, quiet, Inanna, the ways of the underworld are perfect. They may not be questioned. And when she finally removes her garment, she enters bowed low. Ereshkigal kills her and hangs her on a hook on the wall. But Inanna has planned for this. She told her servant back home, Nunshabur, to dress in a soiled sackcloth in mourning and to go to the houses of each of the gods, beat on their doors and beg, do not let your daughter be put to death in the underworld. So Nunshabur goes to the different temples of the gods, and at each one she's turned away. They say, well, she craved the great above, she craved the great below. Nobody who goes to the dark city returns, she must stay there. Finally, Nunshabur goes to a very sympathetic god named Enki. He removes dirt from his fingernails and fashions these entities called the Kugara. And he gives them the food and water of life. And he tells them to go show sympathy to Ereshkigal as she's in labor giving birth in the underworld. This is another touchstone to life coming from death. And he says when they show her sympathy, she will give them a gift and to ask for the corpse of Inanna and feed her the food of life and water of life. So they go to the underworld. They see Ereshkigal going through the pains of labor. She's screaming, oh, oh, my belly, oh, oh, my back. And they also cry, oh, oh, your belly, oh, oh, your back. She says, who are you crying with me in labor? If you are gods, I will give you gifts. If you are mortals, I will give you gifts. And so they say, we want only the corpse that hangs on the wall. She says that corpse belongs to Inanna. They say, oh, whether it's our queen, we don't matter. We just want that gift. So she gives them the gift. They feed her the food of life and water of life. She comes back to life, but the underworld sends demons with her that must claim another in her place. So when she goes back to the upper world, she goes and she keeps meeting people. She sees Nunshabur, her servant, and the demons say, "We will take her in your place." And she says, "No, no, I love Nunshabur. She did exactly what I told her to." So they say, "Okay, let's find someone else." And they see her sons, and she says, "No, you can't take my sons. They are also dressed in mourning and crying at her feet." But when she goes to her husband, he's not dressed in mourning. He's sitting on his throne, like hanging out with all his shining royal garments on. And she says, "Take him." So the demons grab him. And so the lessons of this story are multifold. One of them is that, you can't take it with you when you go. You must remove all of your status. When you go to the underworld, we will all be equal one day. The lesson is that life comes from death. The only reason we can give birth on this planet and bring this life into this wonderful planet is because we know that we will be gone one day, and we know that there's going to be rich fertilizer made from all of the dead things giving to the living. And we also learned from this story that we need to honor our beloved dead, and we need to respect the process of crossing. Although we don't have to fear it, we want to feel our feelings because that's really what is sacred about all of this. So yeah, that's a myth about Samhain. Any other questions about Samhain or Wiccan practice? By the way, my email's up here. I do teach a class, Wicca 101 class in my home every Monday. I've been doing that for 11 years. And so if you know anybody in your life who's very passionate about Wicca and is interested in initiation into a coven, you can give them my email address, wiccan@gmail.com. And a new cohort starts every February. And we gather together for a year and a day so that we can build a sort of camaraderie and rapport. Because when we do things like ritual and sharing energy with each other, it does take a certain degree of trust and rapport.
I have a question, but it's not about salmon.
Yeah.
How did you join Wiccan? Did you grow up in a Wiccan family, or like they ask the Baha'is all the time, how did you become a Baha'i if you're not
Yeah.
Persian, right? So that's
Funny story about that. So I was pagan when I kind of became pagan when I was a teenager. It's still in my home, but my mother was at the time, she was interested in magic. She was doing ceremonial magic at that time, which is another Western magical practice that's not really religious, although it does use some religious symbology. And my dad was an atheist, but a very sympathetic atheist. So while I was 13 years old, back then, you could learn about paganism by doing courses in the mail. And so I would write into these courses, and my dad would mail the packages for me. And they would also drive me into the city to meet with druids or whatever. I was just kind of exploring a lot of different pagan paths. What I found was that Wiccans in particular, which I was drawn to, they won't initiate kids. It's very much a priesthood path. You can think of it as a clergyhood path, and it's got a lot of mature stuff in it. So we don't really usually initiate children. So I decided to start finding my entry point when I became an adult. And the entry point for Wicca is to find an outer court. So each coven has an inner court and an outer court. The inner court is my coven practices that are private, like the one I'm going to tonight with my coven. And the outer court is what I do on Mondays, my Wicca 101 class. It's kind of an outreach where I can do kind of semi-public rituals, where people can come and learn a little bit of the basics, but they don't receive formal training or initiation until they know that that's what they want, right? Because it's kind of a big commitment. We really believe that when we do ritual, we're turning the wheel of the year. This is not something you can skip because you're tired or hungover, right? This is something that we feel is extremely important practice. When I turned 21, I was living in the States at the time. That was kind of the significator of adulthood down there, because Wiccans do share wine or ale in circle. And so I started looking for outer courts, and I actually went to 3 different outer courts before I found the coven that felt like home to me and that felt like family to me and that I was initiated into. And so, yeah, it took a while. It was a lot of seeking, and it took me about 3 years before I got initiated. Yeah.
Is there a relationship between Druids and Wiccan?
So you can think of a umbrella called paganism. And when we talk about paganism or neo-paganism, we are talking about practices that are earth-based. We follow the seasons, that have possibly polytheistic, more than one deity, and that have to do with an idea of pantheism, or that all things are sacred. And so both Druidry and Wicca fall under this umbrella. So they're different practices, but they are both fall under this big umbrella. The differences are that Druids have a lot more deities than Wiccans. We follow two deities that are indigenous to the British Isles, whose names are learned after initiation. And Druids follow many different deities of Celtic origin. They're like Celtic reconstructionists in a sense. And also, Druids are more kind of public facing than Wiccans. Like you can actually go look up a Druid circle and show up and go. Whereas Wiccans, since we're a priesthood and we have specific training paths that we do for our clergy, it's not something that you can usually just parachute into unless that group has an outer court that does public events.
Dr. Chauran, how much difference is there between the Celtic shamanistic religion, say the Pictish shamanistic religion, and the Eastern European shamanistic religions?
Great questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of those indigenous religions also fall under the pagan umbrella because they have that panentheism, they have that polytheistic worship, they have this earth-based spirituality. The Picts and the Celts, very, very similar. Obviously, they're right next to each other geographically, so they share a lot of similarities to each other. And there's certainly some aspects of Wicca that have picked up some of that Celtic and Pictish practices and understandings. For example, they were very connected with the Fae, the idea that there's all these little entities in nature and we have to interact with them respectfully. You know, we can't order them around and tell them to do stuff. Instead, we have to sort of befriend them and gain their favor. And as a result, Wicca has a lot of those practices within it that are different from the ceremonial magic that my mother practiced, because in ceremonial magic, you're very much ordering entities around. You're like, do this, do that. I'm threatening you with a sword, right? But in Wicca, we're like, hey, would you please do this? And in exchange, I'll give you a sweet cake, you know? So it's very, very interesting that we've picked those practices up from the Pictish and Celtic practices. So Slavic practices are also falling under those pagan umbrellas. They worship different deities though, although there's some crossover between the Picts and the Celts and the Brits. There's very different deities over on the Slavic side, and they have a lot of amazing practices having to do with earth-based seasonal stuff. And so I'm always fascinated with those. My grandfather was Ukrainian and my grandmother was Polish, and we used to do during the Easter time the decorating of eggs, you know, the yaika with the pisanki eggs. And so those were amazing practices and very cool. But yeah, different vibes from the different pagan paths for sure, and different deities. Big deal. By the way, oh, I just wanted to say, my mom changes religion like every 10 years, and she's currently Baha'i, so that's really cool. So I was excited when I heard you talking about Baha'i.
I had a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, you worship like or have two gods that are from the British Isles. So when someone who's Wiccan like practices in a place that's, not the British Isles, are there different gods that are worshipped? And along the same lines, like, if you're in a place that where the seasons are different, right? If you're closer to the equator and you don't have like fall as you know it exists in kind of this part of the northern hemisphere, how do the practices change? So in terms of gods and in terms of like the different, you know, seasons on this wheel of the year.
Great question. So I'm going to speak from my experience as a British traditional Wiccan, which might be different from somebody who's practicing a more eclectic kind of path they've put together. So in traditional Wicca, you know, since we're trained as clergy for the specific pair of deities, it's a goddess of the moon and a lord of death and resurrection, we worship those same deities across the planet. And we have very, very similar practices. So like, I know that there's a coven from my same line in Germany. I could fly to Germany, go in their circle. I would know all the words. We'd be talking in English, saying our British traditional chants. We would be worshiping the same goddess and the same god in that ceremony. So it would be exactly the same in Germany. One thing that you did pick up on that is a difference is that there's a difference in the seasons from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. So the celebrations are reversed in the northern and southern hemisphere, which is super cool and crazy. I haven't had an opportunity to celebrate a Sabbath in the southern hemisphere yet. But I would love to, because I feel like that would really trip my brain out, you know, because for most of my life now, I've been really connected to the wheel of the year and each seasonal celebration, and to fly to Australia and just suddenly be celebrating the opposite part of the year would really throw me for a loop. So I would love to try that out. So yeah, there's definitely some differences in when we celebrate the seasonal holidays that changes, but the way that we celebrate, the practices that we do stay the same. Any other questions? Yeah,
I
Kathy.
have a question. So I'm just wondering, when you connect with Indigenous folks, do you kind of say like, oh, this is interesting, like there are these similarities, you know, with like the way that Indigenous folks here sort of practice, you know, traditionally, and then do you see like similarities in that way? Or I don't know, how does that land for you and for Indigenous folks that kind of come into Wiccan circles?
Yeah, I mean, I just personally, I love, I'm sure you guys all identify with loving to learn about different religions and loving this interfaith kind of finding our similarities are more than our differences. And so I definitely draw some parallels between Canadian Indigenous practices and pagan practices, because obviously they're very bound to the seasons. A lot of these religions are polytheistic. And so they definitely trigger my brain to say, oh, one of us, a pagan like us. So I definitely identify with that. Also, Wicca is an indigenous religion of Britain. So I kind of feel that connection with kind of holding the sacred fire of this indigenous religion and keeping the core the same, and keeping the core sacred, the same way that I'm sure Indigenous people feel about wanting to keep that flame alive. It's one reason why Wicca has this inner court that feels kind of secretive, and some people feel like it's kind of exclusive, you know, like, hey, why can't I parachute into an inner court ritual tonight with you? You know, like that's kind of exclusive. Why are you being so mean, right? But it's really about training our clergy that this is the core. These are new practices, or maybe things that our coven just does, but we want to teach the core as it was taught to us, so that we're practicing this, we're passing this sacred religion down that we know works. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And so when I train students, I am teaching the core and saying this part is core, this part is sacred religion that we've been practicing and that I want to see continue. And that feels like a sacred responsibility for me that I don't want to mess up. So I want to make sure that I'm only teaching people who are going to take it seriously, who are going to accept the core teachings and practices and pass those on into the future long after I'm dead.
I had another question.
Yeah, go for it.
Um, so, you know, as you mentioned, like Wicca is polytheistic. Now, I know that like in Hinduism, which is also polytheistic, there is this idea that kind of, you know, at the end, kind of all the different deities, all the different gods are like an aspect of one god. Is
Mhm.
is there a concept like that in Wicca, or is it different and they're all considered like separate, you know, independent beings?
Great question. So Wicca is an initiatory mystery religion, and it's orthopraxic, not orthodoxic. What that means is it's what we do that makes us witches, not what we believe. So when we receive these core teachings and practices, we receive them in a ritual context where we're having an experience, right? And we're gaining understandings of ourselves and our gods through these experiences. And people might come to a different conclusion in the same circle. And maybe myself, when I was initiated at 24 years old, has a different understanding of the divine than myself currently standing before you at 44 years old. So Wicca allows the flexibility to come to a different theology than your peers in the circle and yet still come together and be able to do the same rituals and the same practices. So in my own circle, I might be standing next to somebody who believes that all gods are one god, all goddesses are one goddess, and the goddess and the god are one. And to my other side of me might be somebody who's functionally agnostic and believes that the gods are like psychopomps and very important psychological archetypes that allow us to trigger change within ourselves. So we all are just coming to different understandings in our own time. I like to think of polytheism as kind of a spectrum, where on one side there's hard polytheism, like Gaia is not Kali. That would be crazy, right? And on the other side is very, very soft polytheism that's almost like monotheism, where it's like, oh, the gods are just like different facets on a diamond, just different ways to view the same divinity. And I would say I personally fall more towards hard polytheism, not all the way on that end. I feel like the gods work together like the fingers on a hand, but that's just me. And that's me at age 44. I might feel differently in 10, 20 years, and that's okay in Wicca.
This is
And I have
awesome.
one more
Thank you so
question.
much.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
one more
please.
question, and then I want to be mindful, especially of Bruce and Cheryl, because I know they always have a bunch going on the
Yes,
weekend.
thank you
So
for
yes,
sharing the songs, Bruce and Cheryl. I recognized one of those.
Um, I was just curious because you said when you were initiated at 24 and you mentioned you started studying at 21. So is that pretty typical where it takes about like you spend 3 years in the outer court learning the different practices that are, public or semi-public, as you said, before being initiated into the inner core?
So these practices have changed in our culture over time. And one thing to know is there's no Pope of Wicca. So each coven is autonomous. And once you go through 3 initiations within Wicca. Once you've gone through the 3rd initiation, you're considered an elder like I am. And you can basically tell all the other elders to piss up a rope if you want. You don't have to do what they tell you, right? So each coven, that's a decision for them to make on their own. Like, how long do we make somebody wait before they're ready for initiation? So I'll tell you now about how those practices have changed over time in our culture and how our coven does it now. So in ye old days when Wicca first became public, so Wicca first became public in 1954 when the Witchcraft Act was repealed in Great Britain. Before that, it was illegal to practice witchcraft, so everybody kind of did it in secret, right? But when the Witchcraft Act was repealed, a man named Gerald Gardner wrote a book called Witchcraft Today. And it's a very conversational tone book, which a lot of books were at that time, where he's basically like, hey, we're doing this witchy stuff. Anybody else out there? And sure enough, a bunch of people came out. A man named Alex Sanders came out and he said, oh yeah, we've been doing it too. And so different lines of Wicca started being studied within Wicca. There's the Gardnerian line, there's the Alexandrian line. I belong to the Kingstone line. We started kind of comparing our puppy papers and figuring out like where are we learning this core practices from and stuff like that. And back then, people didn't know anything before getting initiated, right? Because witchcraft was illegal for a long time, right? So they basically get to know witches through some other means. Like, for example, Gerald Gardner found the witches through like a local theater society in his town where they were also practicing Rosicrucians. And he just like got to know these friends. And then he was like, ooh, you're practicing this cool indigenous craft and I would love to join. And so they just kind of got to know him and then initiated him. And a lot of people got initiated without knowing what they were getting into. And as a result, they would kind of have a big mental blow up when they got dropped into training, right? And that was a big problem. So Maxine Sanders was Alex Sanders' wife, and she actually came to the Pacific Northwest about 15 years ago. I got to meet with her when she came, and her host coven was like right on my same block that I was living. So I was talking with them and they were doing an outer court like mine. but they were kind of annoyed because people were kind of stalling out. They weren't doing the homework. They didn't seem to be really serious. And Maxine came to town and she was like, you know, back in my day, we just initiate everybody, and then whoever's going to stay stays, whoever's going to go goes. So that coven decided to follow her advice. They initiated 13 students in 13 moons. That sounds like so much work to me. And then guess what? Only one of them stuck around. Everybody else had like mental conniptions and left. Our coven feels like when initiation happens, it's a big energetic deal in your life. It's like painting a big target on your back for the gods to hit you with a clue by 4, right? So we don't want to just initiate people at random. And we also feel like our inner court material is sacred, and we don't want to teach the wrong person who might make bad use of this information. So as a result, we have our outer court, and the general idea is you have to spend at least a year and a day in the outer court before getting initiated. And the general idea is that once you get initiated, you have to spend a year and a day at least at each initiation level before receiving the next one, the second initiation, the third initiation. In practice, your mileage may vary, and I find that especially in my line, the Kingstone line, it takes longer. So I think that one reason why it took me 3 years is because I was young and people were worried about taking a chance on a youngster. I was the youngest person to join my coven by at least 2 decades. And also, I think that, you know, people are just a lot cautious. Everybody says every elder makes one mistake. And it is heartbreaking when you put a ton of training into somebody and then they go through some kind of crisis and then you blame yourself. I'm speaking from personal experience. The last student I initiated, he had been sober for many years. And after he was initiated, he ended up relapsing. And I know I can't blame myself for that, but part of me is like, you know, that was like a lot of energy to dump into his life at that point in time. He had just gone through a breakup with a boyfriend. And I feel like I could have maybe delayed his initiation, and that would have been maybe mentally healthier for him. We have to be really careful with these kinds of things in Wicca, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been super interesting. And I'm really just enjoying learning so much from you. So thank you so much. Bruce and
Thank you.
Cheryl have a closing song for us. And then I can do a little prayer at the end, or would you rather do a prayer or a little blessing at the end? Do you have an opinion about that, Alexandra?
I could teach you that hoof and horn song. That would be fun. That's a good pagan song. We could do that. I'll
Awesome.
put the lyrics in the chat and then we'll sing it together.
Perfect. Thank you. So when you're ready, Bruce and Cheryl, and then us. Thank you.
We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle within a circle with no beginning and never ending. We are a circle.
right, here, I'll share. I just found some sheet music for a version of Hoof and Horn that we can sing. And I will also put some lyrics in the chat if you can't read what's on the screen in tiny text. All right, so here's our traditional chant, and I'll do it 3 times because that's what we do typically. Hoof and horn, all that die shall be reborn. Corn and grain, all that fall shall rise again. Hoof and horn, all that die shall be reborn. Corn and grain, all that fall shall rise again. Hoof and horn, all that die shall be reborn. Corn and grain, all that fall shall rise again. So mote it be.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.